Professor Acemoglu and Robinson write in the preamble of the book, Why Nations Fail. The wealth and poverty divide in the Middle East. The Arab Spring, triggered by the Jasmine Revolution, has led to dissatisfaction in North Africa and the Middle East, particularly in Tunisia and Egypt. The revolution has influenced various movements across the region, expressing a collective desire for change and justice. Economic conditions in Egypt. Egyptians have an average income of about 12% of that of an average American, with a life expectancy 10 years shorter. Around 20% of the Egyptian population lives in extreme poverty. The narrative surrounding Egypt's poverty is multifaceted, with citizens blaming systemic issues like corruption, oppression, and inadequate education. Scholars attribute poverty to geographical and cultural factors, while others attribute it to misguided policies by the ruling class. The book aims to explore the mechanisms and factors contributing to these patterns and whether the revolution will lead to new institutions fostering prosperity for Egyptian citizens. Chapter 1, So Close and Yet So Different. This chapter delves into the study of Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora, have the same people, culture, and geography. Why is one rich and one poor? Economy of the Rio Grande explanation. Nogales, Arizona. Average household income of $30,000 a year. Healthy population with high life expectancy. Many residents above 65 years old. Access to Medicare. Government provides services like electricity, telephones, sewage system, public health, road network, and law and order. Residents consider government as their agent, voting in presidential elections. Nogales, Sonora. Income is about 1/3 of Nogales, Arizona. High infant mortality rates and poor public health conditions. Democracy is a recent experience, with the Institutional Revolutionary Party controlling until 2000. Differences between the two halves of Nogales. Nogales, Arizona, allows free occupation choices and encourages investment in technology. Nogales, Sonora, has a different world shaped by different institutions, creating disparate incentives for inhabitants and entrepreneurs. Theme 2 of the Chapter 1 is the founding of Buenos Aires. The founding of Buenos Aires, a historical overview. Spanish navigator Juan Díaz de Solís claimed the Rio de la Plata in 1516, naming it the River of Silver. Indigenous peoples, Charwas, and the Quirandi, viewed the Spaniards with hostility. Pedro de Mendoza established Buenos Aires in 1534, but the first stay was short-lived due to resource exploitation. Spanish expeditions were sent to find more riches and easier coercion. In 1537, Juan de Iolas encountered the Garon, a sedentary people with an agricultural economy. After a brief conflict, the Spanish founded Nuestra Señora de Santa María de la Asunción, Paraguay's capital. The Spanish married Garon princesses and established a new aristocracy. Buenos Aires was abandoned within 4 years, not resettled until 1580. Theme 3 of the Chapter 1 is from Cajamarca. Spanish expansion and colonization of the Americas. Spanish expeditions led by de Solís, de Mendoza, and de Iolas established themselves as the new elite of indigenous society. The military conquest of the Aztecs led to the division of the indigenous population through the encomienda. De las Casas, disillusioned by the cruel treatment of indigenous peoples, participated in the Spanish conquest of Cuba in 1513. The Spanish criticized the Spanish colonial institutions, particularly in Nicaragua, where settlers took over native lands and treated the native population as household members. The Spanish captured the Inca capital of Cusco, imprisoning the Inca aristocracy until they produced gold and silver. Francisco de Toledo revived and adapted the Inca labor institution known as the MITA, used for forced labor to run plantations. The MITA system significantly influenced the development of the provinces of Cauca and Acomayo in Peru. The Repartimento de Mercancías and the Trajín were introduced to exploit indigenous labor. These institutions generated wealth for the Spanish crown but also turned Latin America into the most unequal continent in the world. Theme 4 of the Chapter 1 is to Jamestown. Jamestown's establishment and struggles. The Spanish conquest of the Americas and the establishment of Jamestown. The Spanish conquest of the Americas in the 1490s led England to exploit indigenous peoples. The Spanish Armada's successful invasion of England in 1588 signaled growing English assertiveness on the seas. The first plan was to capture the local chief and use him to get provisions and coerce the population into producing food and wealth. Jamestown's survival and challenges of colonialization. The settlers in Jamestown ran low on food as winter of 1607 closed in. Captain John Smith, a soldier of fortune, was rescued by Captain John Smith, who was nominated to be a member of the ruling council. Colonist struggles and the failure of the colonial model. The colonists continued their quest for gold and precious metals, ignoring the lack of these in Virginia. Wahunsu imposed a trade embargo, leading to a complete fiasco. Smith's call for change in colonial governance. Smith urged the directors of the Virginia Company to change their view of the colony, arguing that the colonists would have to work and provide food. The new governance left no room for Smith, who returned to England in the autumn of 1609. The failure of plans for institutions in Maryland and Carolina. The attempts to impose draconian rule in Virginia and Carolina failed due to the lack of options available to settlers. Theme 5 of the Chapter 1 is a tale of two constitutions. The Tale of Two Constitutions, the United States and Mexico. Understanding the constitutions. The United States adopted a democratic constitution based on limited political power. The constitutional crisis in colonial Latin America led to the creation of the CDS Constitution in 1812. The first declaration of independence occurred in La Paz, Bolivia, in 1809. The CDS Constitution was abrogated in 1815, but was restored in 1820 by a Spanish army mutiny. Impact of the United States Constitution on Mexican independence. The United States Constitution did not create a democracy by modern standards. The Civil War resolved conflicts favoring the North, but Mexico experienced political instability for the first 50 years of independence. Santa Anna's presidency was tumultuous, leading to the loss of the Alamo and Texas and the Mexican-American War. Political instability led to insecure property rights and weakened the Mexican state, enabling the annexation of Texas by the United States. Theme 6 of the Chapter 1 is having an idea, starting a firm, and getting a loan. The Industrial Revolution and the impact of patents. The Industrial Revolution, originating in England, revolutionized cotton cloth production. The patent system, established in 1623, protected property rights in ideas and was systematized in the Statute of Monopolies. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the phonogram and light bulb, exploited his patents by starting a firm. The US democratic political and innovation environment was crucial to its economic innovation. Impact of financial intermediation and banking on US inventors and Mexican banking industry. The 19th century saw significant expansion of financial intermediary and banking in the US, facilitating economic growth and industrialization. The lack of competition allowed banks to charge high interest rates and confined lending to the privileged and wealthy. The transformation of the Mexican banking industry was influenced by post-independence political institutions. U.S. banking industry and economic prosperity. The U.S. banking industry's economic prosperity is not due to differences in bank owners' motivations. The profit motive, underpinned by Mexico's monopolistic nature, was present in the U.S. The U.S. banking system, similar to Mexico's, was not sustainable due to election and re-election. Theme 7 of the Chapter 1 is path-dependent change. Path-dependent change in Latin America, economic stimulation and political instability. Path-dependent change in Latin America. The 1870s and 80s saw a global economic boom and transportation innovations, leading to increased international trade. Resource-rich countries like Mexico exported raw materials and natural resources to industrializing North America or Western Europe. Porfirio Diaz recognized the need for change in Latin America but not replaced colonial institutions with those in the United States. In the United States, legislative acts gave broad access to frontier lands, creating an egalitarian and economically dynamic frontier. In Latin American countries, political institutions allocated frontier lands to the politically powerful and wealthier, leading to economic stagnation and political instability. The institutional pattern in Mexico and Latin America has been ineffective for growth, leading to economic stagnation, political instability, civil wars, and coups. Theme 8 of the Chapter 1 is making a billion or two. Impact of colonial societies on modern differences in the U.S. and Mexico. Colonial societies' institutional legacies shape modern differences between the U.S. and Mexico. Bill Gates and Carlos Slim, two of the world's richest men, demonstrate these influences. Gates' rise to power was influenced by U.S. Department of Justice's civil actions against Microsoft. Slim's success in Mexico was attributed to his ability to buy and revamp unprofitable firms, including Telmex, a Mexican telecommunications monopoly. Mexican entrepreneurs face entry barriers like expensive licenses, red tape, politicians, and incumbents. Slim's Telmex monopoly uses the recurso de amparo, an appeal for protection, to cement monopoly power. Slim's economic expansion in the U.S. was largely due to his political connections.
In 1999, Slim bought the Comp USA, violating a contract with Cox Services, leading to a $454 million fine. Theme 9 of the Chapter 1 is World Inequality Theory. World Inequality Concept and Implications. World inequality is a theoretical framework examining disparities between nations. Wealthier nations offer superior healthcare, improved life expectancy, and enhanced educational opportunities. These nations provide a variety of lifestyle options and amenities. Infrastructure in affluent countries includes clean roads, sanitation facilities, electricity, and clean drinking water. Well-established governments ensure public health and safety and allow citizens to participate in political discourse. Less affluent nations often migrate to higher living standards, causing social tensions and political instability. The case of Nogales, Sonora, illustrates how external influences can enhance local prosperity. Global economic relationships shape local wealth distribution, underscoring the complexity of world inequality. Wealth disparity and institutional frameworks. The average American has 7 times more wealth than the average Mexican citizen. The wealth gap is 10 times greater in Peru or Central America, and 20 times more in sub-Saharan Africa. Americans are nearly 40 times more prosperous than those in the poorest African nations. Affluent nations in Europe, North America, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea, and Taiwan have a significantly different standard of living. Institutional frameworks significantly shape the economic landscape, as illustrated by the contrasting fortunes of Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora. The U.S.'s economic and political institutions foster a climate conducive to wealth generation and innovation. The educational system empowers individuals like Bill Gates, while the supportive economic framework facilitates company establishment, streamlined project financing, and stability. Political and economic institutions' influence on nations' economic success. Political and economic institutions shape poverty and prosperity levels. The United States economic institutions can be traced back to political frameworks developed after 1619. Interplay between these institutions is crucial in understanding global inequality. Challenges of addressing global inequality and fostering prosperity in underdeveloped countries are deeply entrenched. Power dynamics often dictate which institutions are maintained and which are subject to reform. The theory encompasses both economic and political dimensions, emphasizing the significant role of institutions in determining nations' success or failure. Thank you.